A common mistake that people make, especially stage green people, is they like to romanticize early phases of human society. The hunter-gatherers that lived before the agrarian age, and they were the spiritual ones, they were the peaceful ones, they didn't have this toxic masculinity, they didn't start any wars, they didn't have any nuclear weapons, they were just peaceful and simple people. And then when agriculture came along, that's when everything became violent, and then there was war and military and conquest and dictators and tyrants and all of this. And ever since, mankind has been going downhill. That's not a correct view. Because if you actually go and you study these hunter-gatherer tribes, who still exist in certain parts of the world, in South America, in Papua New Guinea, and Indonesia, and Africa, in certain areas, what you see with these tribal people is that in a certain sense, yes, they are peaceful, and in a certain sense, yes, they are spiritual. But really, the majority of them are at stage purple, which is very low. This makes them superstitious. They're highly uneducated. They're not able to reason properly. Their scientific understanding of the world is very limited. These people are also very racist and bigoted. They're closed-minded. They're not open-minded people. They're not open to all sorts of worldly cosmopolitan perspectives, because that takes development. These people have slavery. Hunter-gatherer tribes all around the world, through all of human history, had slavery, and it was perfectly acceptable. Slavery was only abolished around stage orange. They also engage in tribal warfare, where each tribe, although it might be peaceful and spiritual with itself, with its own members, it will fight to the death over very silly matters with neighboring tribes. Like a neighboring tribe could steal a pig, and then they'll go to war for decades. Clan warfare. That stuff still goes on in the Middle East. Clan warfare. Very tribal culture, because a lot of the Middle East is still stuck in purple. They have no legal system, so it's hard to get justice. They don't really have any corporations or businesses. They don't really have a solid economic system. It's difficult to make transactions because everything has to be bartered and traded. There's no currency. Or if there is, it can be easily manipulated and exploited. These tribes, they rape and they pillage. And also what you have to understand is that in a certain sense, it's easy for these tribes because they're still at a very low scale. They're not at mass scale. We're only talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of individuals in one of these hunter-gatherer tribes. But what people don't understand is the kind of stuff that is easy and that works, the solutions that work, the structure, the infrastructure that works at low scales of humans does not scale up without huge problems when you start talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of people. What happens when you take 10 million people and you put them into a densely packed area together? How do you make sure that they don't rape, thieve, and slit each other's throats? That's a real challenge. A real challenge. And what happens when you throw technology, advanced technology into the mix? What happens when you throw rocket launchers into the mix and automatic weapons, landmines, pollution, waste, gas, and nuclear weapons? How do you make sure that those people don't all kill each other? Well, that's a real challenge. And that's what society has been coping with. And it was gradually evolving itself to deal with these challenges and to scale up. So even though these hunter-gatherer tribes might seem like they have it all figured out and they live peacefully with nature, that's only because they're doing it at a low scale. That's easy. That's easy. It's easy to get 10 people to live in harmony together. Try doing it with 10 million. Try doing it with 10 billion. When you start to have so many people that there's actually a strain on the resources of your environment, like, for example, on Easter Island, these hunter-gatherers lived on Easter Island, but then they ended up chopping down all the trees and over farming the entire land to the point where they couldn't sustain themselves on that island and they all died out. That's precisely what happens, and that's what could happen with the entire globe if we're not careful. So what needs to happen is that we need to keep evolving forward to solve these problems. And in a sense, because we're building our own environment, our own ant colony, we are our own greatest enemies. So we have to be cognizant of what kind of ant colony are we building. But in the end, no one person is in control. There's an intelligence that's guiding this entire process that you can sort of have faith in. You know, mankind has solved a lot of problems over the last 5,000 years, so you can probably expect that we'll solve a lot more in the next few thousand years, at least, if you want to be hopeful and optimistic. Because no one is running the show. No one individual is smart enough. No dictator, no businessman, no Elon Musk figure is going to be smart enough to solve all of these problems for us. It's going to be solved by the collective intelligence of all of mankind and really all of the entire force of evolution. The force that's responsible for designing your body and all of these cells that are working together, trillions of cells all working together to create this organism here. That force is going to be responsible for creating the optimal society to help elevate the consciousness of all of mankind and ultimately the entire universe.